anything in life is possible, but.
All right, may I make a friendly amendment that we nominate Jim Rees as chair and Alice Raskin as vice chair?
Agreed.
Okay.
So is Commissioner Lambert, you were the second, is that okay with you?
No, that's fine. We just took up the amount of time it would have taken to do 2 motions, but that's okay.
So now we just did one.
It's all the same amount of time, so let's keep it going. Can we have a roll call vote, please?
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert?
Yes.
Commissioner Landris?
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin?
Yes.
And Chair Rees?
Yes. Great. Thank you, everybody. Now we're going to
get that man a new Chiron.
Okay. We're going to move on to 1B, which is the Planning Director's report. Mr. Martin.
Good evening, Commission. Waiting for the slide to come up. I always think of it as Nina's slide, but I know it's for the whole community.
It's a great public service.
So coming up on your agendas, next meeting, May 11th, is a progress update on the housing element. May 18th, we will be bringing the Ocean Avenue Project Development Agreement. This is the hotel at the corner of Ocean and Santa Monica. Happy to report that is our last pending development agreement. So this will be the last DA the Commission sees for some time. And then June 1st, concept responses to the letter from HCD on the housing element. City Council, March 15th, there was a study on SB 9, and direction was given. March 22nd, the Council extended the IZO related to our entitlement permits, and it's the expedited process that has been adopted. So this is an extension of that existing IZO. And then also the St. John's Development Agreement was approved by Council. And then on April 12th, the Council extended the streamlined processes for housing projects. Coming up at City Council on April 26th, they will be rehearing the Oceana Hotel conditional use permit appeal. So this was something the Commission saw now quite a few months ago, if not maybe even a year, I'm not sure. But anyway, it went to the Council once. Now it's going back to them for reconsideration. And this would allow them to open up their restaurant to the general public. Also on April 26th, Jane gave a housing element update, progress, what we've heard so far from HCD, and then also the Council approved an EIR contract modification for the housing element. Next Council meeting on May 10th is the extension of the Santa Monica Outdoors program, which includes the temporary use of private outdoor space. So this would allow some of the parking lots in town that have been converted to restaurant space, also the parklets and outdoor or sidewalk dining that we saw come up during COVID. So this would extend those provisions. And then also on May 10th, the Carl Thorpe appeal will be heard by City Council. That concludes my report. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'm going to ask the commissioners to chime in a second, but I want to ask one quick question. Is there any movement on a replacement for the commission yet?
I understand that will be on the Council agenda the next meeting. It was on the last agenda, but it's been the Council's practice not to appoint on boards and commissions unless they have a full Council, and they didn't at the last meeting. So, but I do understand it will happen at the next Council meeting, so it will be next Tuesday.
Thank you very much. Commissioner Lambert?
When do you anticipate the SB 9 red lines will be coming to us, and what do property owners do in the meantime if they want to exercise SB 9?
I would turn to Jane for that.
Yeah, so we are expecting to bring the SB 9 red lines with the housing element, like any zoning things. Right now we do have guidance for property owners who want to do that. We have, if someone wanted to apply, we're ready to receive those applications. We have not received any applications thus far. We've just been answering just, some very general inquiries, people kind of interested in what it is and how it works. So, but we do have some, guidance in terms of how to process those, if they do come in.
Where's the guidance from?
We would be implementing state law.
Okay. And using R1 standards, I assume.
Correct. Yes.
Thank you.
Commissioner Raskin.
Yeah, thank you so much for the timeline update on the housing elements. I'm hoping you can tell us a little bit more about what's happening behind the scenes, either with respect to ongoing discussions with HCD or just internally, locally, what steps are happening right now?
So on the housing.
Yeah, go ahead.
Sorry, go.
I was just going to say we do have that on an upcoming agenda for the commission. I think, Jane, go ahead. It's obviously not agendized, so we wouldn't want to get into too much detail, but we could certainly give you the highlights.
Yeah, I was about to say the same thing as, we have an update, a progress update to council next Tuesday on April 26th. The staff report or the agenda should be published maybe tomorrow, or if it's not already published, I don't think I've seen it come through yet. So we'll be giving the same update to the commission as well at your May 11th meeting. Basically we've been having a lot of consultation with HCD is what's been happening for the past, however, couple months.
Any other questions of staff? Hearing none, I'm going to thank the director and team for their responses and the presentation, and I'm going to move on to the next agenda item, which is 1C. Are there any announcements by commissioners? Not seeing any. I'm going to move on to agenda item 2, which is the consent calendar. And this is the adoption of resolution number 22-008 PCS and 22-009 PCS, resolutions of intention declaring the Planning Commission's intention to consider recommending to the City Council that the Council amend the text of the zoning ordinance related to 1, economic recovery citywide in the city's downtown mixed use and commercial employment and oceanfront and public, semi-public districts, excluding the areas including immediately adjacent to 3rd Street Promenade, and 2, economic recovery in the area including and immediately adjacent to the 3rd Street Promenade. Do we have a motion? Commissioner Lambert.
I move adoption of the consent calendar.
And a second. Second by Landris, moved by Lambert, second by Landris. We could have a vote.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi?
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco?
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert?
Yes.
Commissioner Landris?
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin?
Yes.
And Chair Reese?
Yes. Great. Agenda item, we have nothing under agenda item number 3, study sessions, or 4, continued items, or 5, staff administrative items. We'll move right on to our public hearings. And this is number 6A, conditional use permit to allow the sale of alcohol beverages to include beer, wine for off-site consumption, and to allow ancillary on-site instructional tasting of beer and wine pursuant to alcohol beverage control license types 20 and 86 respectively. The association with the operation of an existing Erewhon market located on 2800 Wilshire Boulevard in the mixed-use Boulevard district of the city. At this point, I'm going to ask if we have Commissioner Landris.
Sorry, I'll wait.
I was going to ask if there's ex parte, but I'm not sure that's totally required at this point. But since I'm asking, is there any ex parte? Okay, I see Commissioner Raskin.
I was just going to say for the record that I've shopped at this market on occasion.
Do you feel that you can still make a fair and balanced decision on this?
Yes, absolutely.
Fantastic. Okay, so with that, I'm going to ask staff to give their, I'm going to ask Commissioner Landris to.
Yeah, I was going to move to waive the staff report.
Commissioners, is there a second for that?
I second.
Okay. Can we have a roll call vote?
Commissioner Fonda-Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Landris,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
and Chair Reese.
Yes. Can we go to the staff, not staff presentation, I'm sorry, to the applicant's presentation? I believe you're going to have 10 minutes for your presentation and 3 minutes in rebuttal. And you're not required to use all 10 minutes or the 3 minutes.
Great. Good evening, Commissioners. Can you hear me okay?
I hear you fine, sir.
Great. Thank you very much. Good evening. I'm here on behalf of Erewhon Natural Foods Market, which operates a location at 2800 Wilshire. Joining me this evening are from Erewhon, Mr. Tony Antoci, the owner, operations manager, Mr. Yuval Shiprit, and the on-site manager, Mike Bowen. I'd also like to take this opportunity to thank planning staff for all their efforts in getting this to a hearing. Thank you very much, rather. There was a lot of work. Appreciate it. A little bit of background on Erewhon. It's been around for about 50 years, started in Southern California. They specialize in organic and responsibly sourced foods. They now have 7 locations with more on the way. Their specialization in organic and responsibly sourced foods results in a product line that's free from preservatives, synthetic pesticides, ripening agents, growth hormones. It's a very popular store. This one at 2800 Wilshire Boulevard is on almost a 30,000 square foot parcel located in an MUB zone. So the store itself is a proper use in this location. The building was previously occupied by another retail grocery store, Fresh and Easy. Yeah, and I'll run through this fairly quickly. Folks, let me know if you have any questions as I run through this. The property includes a 12,000 square foot market and a parking area for 42 vehicles. Erewhon offers a full-time parking attendant and valet service in the parking area to facilitate that on-site parking and to maximize its use. These services are free of charge. Store's operating hours, 7 a.m. to 10 p.m. We think that's reasonable for the location abutting residential properties. We have a CUP application before you for beer and wine sales for off-site consumption and on-site instructional tastings. Erewhon currently holds 9 ABC licenses with more on the way, and they have an excellent record of compliance with the ABC. Beer and wine will be less than 10% of the overall sales at the store. That's compared to their other stores that already have ABC licenses. Our beer and wine display at this location will not exceed 153 square feet, so it's very much a small part of our operation. The addition of the beer and wine will not increase deliveries at the site, as these deliveries will come from already working vendors, or we will have reduced orders for other items that will no longer be carried. Again, the alcohol, the beer and wine is not meant as a draw in itself, but just as an added amenity for the patrons already visiting the store. Chair, as you mentioned, we have 2 ABC licenses before you. One is the Type 20 license, which is beer and wine for off-site consumption, and the Type 86, which is on-site instructional tastings. The Type 86 may be new to you. It is specifically tailored to on-site tastings. It limits the hours of available operations for tastings. It limits the size of each tasting per patron and how many tastings that patron can have in a day. We feel the 86 is a much better license type for this use, as the Type 42 is technically a bar license and has a lot more leeway with its operations. We held 2 community meetings to go over the operation and see how the neighbors were. Between 10 and 15 people attended each meeting. The main points of discussion were parking, delivery times, and litter or employees hanging out on their breaks. There was very little discussion about the beer and wine itself. To address the parking area, we are a busy store. We know it, so we do have a lot of traffic in that parking area. As I'd mentioned before, we have a full-time parking attendant and valet service available free of charge. Erewhon has also voluntarily leased off-site parking spaces across the street in an office building, and that is for their employee parking, so that those employees don't take up on-site parking or go into the streets. Erewhon has also introduced a walk-up window on the eastern side of the building, northeast side of the building in the corner. During COVID, the online orders became a large part of the business. So in order to keep those online orders out of the parking lot, out of the store, they have a walk-up window where you touch a doorbell, they deliver your goods, you're in and out of there in about 5 minutes. So to work with that, there is a loading zone in front of that window, and we're going to request from Department of Traffic or Transportation to change a couple more of those spaces to loading zones just to facilitate that and keep more people out of the parking lot. That being said, we believe our request is appropriate. It's not a new use for the area. Similar applications have been approved on Wilshire. As I mentioned, Erewhon has a number of licenses with an excellent record in California. And we also sent out, the ABC application has been sent and no protests were lodged with ABC. We also have a petition that was sent at the store, and we have over 1,000 signatures of people supporting the project. With that being said, I'm going to turn it back over to you if you have any questions.
Okay, thank you very much for your presentation. Commissioner Fonda Bernardi.
Yeah, just a quick information question. Right now, going out of that pickup window, what would you say the percentage of sales are going out that way versus through the regular cashier lines?
That is an excellent question, and I do have the store owner and the on-site manager. If I could ask one of them to give you a more correct number, mine would be an estimate.
Okay.
Hello, everybody. Thanks for taking this time. Can you all hear me okay?
Yeah, but just for the record, please give your name and affiliation.
Oh, sorry about that. Tony Antosi, CEO of Erewhon Market.
Great.
So the biggest part of that Windows use is for Postmates and Uber Eats. There's approximately 150 of those orders a day coming through the store currently. This window's relatively new for us.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all the traffic's moved over to the window. And then we have anywhere between 30 and 50 orders a day of product being ordered through our website, which is full grocery orders. So it's about 200 per day running through the window. And usually it's an Uber driver who's picking it up and delivering it to the customer's home.
And that 200 represents what fraction of your transaction, just roughly?
Yeah, it's a good question. We do about 2,000 transactions a day.
Okay.
So
Thank
there
you.
you go.
Sorry, could you answer that again? My dog was barking right when you answered that.
No problem. It's 200 per day, so 2,000 transactions, about 10%.
Great, thank you. Commissioner Landris.
Thank you, and thank you for the presentation. We received a letter just before the deadline from one person who I gather attended your community meetings, and we only received this after the deadline. So I don't know. I just, before I even ask you about it, can I just check to see that you did see this letter?
I did read it. I'm not sure if Tony did.
I did not.
Okay. So I guess the questions that I have are who from Erewhon was at the community meetings, and what response you might offer to the letter. You covered it somewhat in your presentation, but just because it came up in the letter, I wanted to, for the record, find out what your thoughts were. That you had addressed, I mean, the letter addressed employee parking on the street, loud noise, due to employees playing, I have no idea how the person knows that they're the employees, but let's assume that they do. Employees playing loud music from their vehicles or gunning their motorcycles, trash on the street, which could be from employees and patrons, and then the traffic, and you've just addressed some of the traffic issues, but I was curious, again, who was at the meeting and what steps you might be taking to respond to the concerns that have been raised by the residents in the meeting.
For the first meeting, I held the first meeting as an introduction to the project with some of my team. For the second meeting, we did have Tony on board. We had Mike, which is the on-site manager, was there as well. The turnout for the second meeting was much less than the first one, which was disappointing because we had the Erewhon representatives there.
So do you have thoughts about what responses you might be offering? I mean, obviously you've worked with staff in terms of proposing a set of guidelines around the license and the hours and things like that. And so I was just curious, to the extent that there were more residents at the first meeting than at the second, is there any additional response that Erewhon wants to offer, now?
Yeah, so we
some of those
pressure
concerns.
washed the sidewalk, trying to keep the area clean. We have full-time maintenance crew. I think we have 6 of them on our team there, for all the hours, 7 days a week. And we're doing our best to try to keep it as clean as possible. Again, traffic volume and whatnot, it makes it difficult, but we're definitely out there daily, multiple times a day, picking up trash and making sure that it's presentable and clean. And if you look at our stores, they're always very clean. And we pride in making sure that they're that way.
And in terms of encouraging employees to kind of respect the neighborhood to the extent that they can, is something that you do on a regular basis internally?
Absolutely.
Okay.
100%.
All right. Great. Thank you very much.
Okay, Commissioner Lambert, I want to use my discretion here a little bit just because of the line of questioning. I want to tag on something real quick. In our staff report, it talks about I think there were some complaints in February of 2022. Well, there were some noise complaints earlier that were I guess now closed out. But I'm just curious from your standpoint, what were those complaints and how were they addressed?
I can answer that. We did have, so our lot, our deliveries come in the morning hours, and we know we're not supposed to have deliveries before 7, and we made sure that everybody knew this. Trucks were backing into the lot before we even knew they were there, and sometimes they'd get there at 2, 3 o'clock in the morning, and they were backing in with the noise. Once we got pictures of what was going on, we identified the 2 trucks that were doing this somewhat frequently, and naturally nailed them and said, you can't do it. You can't be on the property until after 7 a.m. And so it's been fixed ever since then. Once we identified who they were and were able to stop, we're not there, so we wouldn't have physically known that was happening beforehand.
Okay, thank you. Commissioner Lambert, you had your next hand up.
Chair, but before we continue, I just want to note that is it possible to mention that the public comment lines are open for this item, just to give the public advance notice to call in?
I am so sorry. Yes, absolutely. Let's take a quick moment and just highlight that on the top of the agenda, there should be a phone call-in line for anybody in the public who is interested in speaking about this. And we urge you to give us a call right now, please. I'm sorry. So, Commissioner Lambert, let's move forward.
I think I read the staff report that you reached out to Mid-City neighbors, to the Northeast neighbors. Explain what the response was. My understanding was that they didn't feel the need for a meeting project. Can you confirm that or explain differently?
Yeah, sorry, you cut out a little bit there, but I think your question related to the 2 neighborhood groups in the area. Right. So the border of the neighborhood groups runs up Wilshire. So we had one that we were technically in and one across the street. We contacted both, and neither one had an issue with the application and didn't even require a presentation. But we did reach out to, and I'm looking for the names. Northeast Neighbors was one, and I'll find the other name for it. There are budding groups running along Wilshire.
Mid-City neighbors.
That's it. Thank you very much, Commissioner.
Excuse the barking in the background.
Of course.
Well, welcome to my life.
Okay. And I think the question that she actually ended up having was they decided that they did not need a meeting. Is that what
That is correct.
Okay. Any other commission comments right now? Questions? Okay. At this time, I think we're gonna let the community speak and see if we have anybody on the call on the line. And while we're waiting for people to queue up on the line, I do have a question of staff, if possible. Staff, is what we heard about the noise and how it was resolved consistent with your understanding of that issue?
Thank you, Chair Reese. Yes, can you hear me?
Yes, I can now.
Yes. Thank you for your question. Yes, that is consistent. There were two noise complaints that were reported to the Code Enforcement Division, and both complaints were investigated and subsequently closed. We also understand that neighbors actually took photos of the trucks that were making the noise, so that is accurate based on what the applicant has shared with you.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Then the next question I have is, there's also, we see the condition that sales of alcohol cannot exceed 35%. Will you just remind us how we track that and in the city?
That is tracked through the sales receipt from the store operation. I don't remember, Steve, if that is an annual basis or.
Yeah, for the annual receipts, that is really something upon request from the city, or if there was any concerns that sales were exceeding 35%, that the operator would be able to share those in any form of check-in, I guess, with any applicants.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other questions for staff? I'm trying to give the community a little time since we put this number up late in the game. And I don't see any other questions. One other comment I would make to the presenters: you did present and highlight that you had a petition with over 1,000 names. I did not see that in the public record, and if you've gone to that trouble of getting all those names, I would urge you to please submit that to the city and get that in the public record.
Immediately.
Okay. With that, if staff can let us know, do we have anybody from the community online?
No, Chair, nobody on the line.
Okay. Commissioner, I'm a little troubled that I didn't ask for this earlier. Are you guys comfortable that we've given the community enough time, or should we give a minute pause to do this?
I feel like there was enough time in the course of our discussions. If we probably did use up a minute and change. So since you announced it, the line was open, so I would feel comfortable calling the question.
Chair, what we've in this situation, we've typically put up the clock. So we could put up the clock for 1 minute and then go to a vote.
Okay. You know what? I'm sorry. Let's do that just to be abundantly cautious and transparent. So please give us that clock, and then we'll come back, and I would look forward to somebody with a motion or discussion.
Do people know the phone number to dial in?
She had it up there.
It was posted.
And it was posted. She put it up there for a little while, and it's on the agenda.
Okay.
Okay, thank you for bearing with me. I assume we don't have any callers yet, but staff confirm that?
Confirmed. No callers at this time.
Fantastic. Commissioner Lambert.
I would make the motion then to approve conditional use permit 21 ENT-000.
We have a second? Commissioner Fonda Minardi?
I would second that. I assume the presenters don't want to rebuttal.
No, sir, I think we're good. Tony, you good? Yeah.
Okay.
Good. Good.
Thank you, Commissioner Fonda Minardi. Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any discussion? No discussion. Can we call the question?
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Landris,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
Chair Reese.
Yes. Great. So that passes unanimously. Thank you very much, presenters, for your time
I
tonight.
need a motion to approve the STOA as well, please.
Can we get a
So
motion?
moved. I move.
Second.
Moved by Lambert, seconded by Fonda Minardi.
Commissioner Fonda Bernardi,
Yes.
Commissioner Fresco,
Yes.
Commissioner Lambert,
Yes.
Commissioner Landris,
Yes.
Commissioner Raskin,
Yes.
and Chair Reese.
Yes. Okay. Now I think I'm going to thank you again for your presentation. And I believe that you are done and we can move on to our next agenda item.
Appreciate it. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you very much, commissioners.
And Chair, can I just take just a moment of privilege just to mention that this is actually Rather's final Planning Commission meeting. He is resigning from the city to take a position with the city of Pasadena. So we wanted to take this opportunity to thank Rather for his 6 years of service to the city and wonderful way to leave. So thank you so much, Rather.
Thank you, Jane. Thank you. It's been an honor and a privilege serving the commission, and I truly enjoy my time working on a variety of projects that have come to us and that undoubtedly will improve the city and the quality of life for the residents. So I'm grateful for that opportunity. Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, Rather. We appreciate your service to the city and wish you the best at your new position out in Pasadena.
Thank you very much.
Great.
Great. Thank you, commissioners.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody. Bye.
Bye-bye. Bye-bye.
Commissioners, any other comments on, or are we going to move on? Okay, let's move on to, we don't have anything under items 7 or 8. We're into Planning Commission member discussion items. And this is going to be a discussion that we're going to have about whether we come back to in-person meetings or virtual meetings. I think I'm going to ask staff to kind of frame this discussion for us before we dive into it.
Absolutely. Just give me a moment to fire up a little thing here. We just prepared a brief presentation here, and both Heidi and I are sort of going to tag team on this. So this is a discussion on teleconference meetings. This came about, as we were, so apologize again to the confusion for the commission as we were trying to sort through the process for a potential return to in-person meetings. So as you are aware, the City Council has initiated fully in-person meetings. That started with their April 12th meeting, and going forward, that will be what the City Council is doing. The City Council has also voted to authorize teleconference meetings to continue, however, for the boards and commissions. And so tonight is really just an opportunity to provide the commission the forum to understand the conditions under which that is continuing, and to ask any questions that you may have of myself or the city attorney's office on this. So this is mostly just a little bit of background. So under AB 361, that is what is providing the authority to continue teleconference meetings. And the process initiates by authorizing these teleconference meetings without following the standard Brown Act teleconferencing requirements. So number one, there must be a proclaimed state of emergency. And then one of the following circumstances must exist. So either state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing, or the legislative body has determined by majority vote that as a result of the emergency, meeting in person would present imminent risk to the health or safety of attendees. And that is the particular circumstance under which the City Council has voted. So you can see that the Council voted to make those initial findings in 2B on this slide on September 28, 2021. And that is what has allowed boards and commissions to meet in a teleconference format. Once that initial vote is taken, in order to continue in teleconference meetings, essentially the City Council has to vote every 30 days to demonstrate that they have continued to consider that those circumstances are still in place. So the requirements for subsequent teleconference meetings, either the proclaimed state of emergency remains active, which is what has happened, or state or local officials have imposed or recommended measures to promote social distancing. And then not later than 30 days, which is what I was referencing, after teleconferencing for the first time, then every 30 days, council by majority vote has to find that it has reconsidered those circumstances of the emergency, and then at least one of the following circumstances exists. That is that the state of emergency continues to directly impact the ability of the members to meet safely in person, or state or local officials continue to impose or recommend measures to promote social distancing. And you can see here that the council last voted on this at their April 12, 2022 meeting to allow boards and commissions to continue in teleconference format until May the 12th, 2022. The council will consider this again at their May 10th meeting. So that's actually a typo in the date. So May 10th, and then they will basically, continue as conditions allow every 30 days, to authorize boards and commissions to continue to meet in that teleconference format. What that means for boards and commissions is that, every board and commission is authorized to conduct those teleconference meetings as long as council continues to adopt those AB 361 findings. However, it does allow boards and commissions to individually vote. So any board and commission can certainly choose, if you so wish, to individually return to in-person meetings. So there's not a requirement that boards and commissions meet in teleconference format. Certainly if that is the desire of that particular body, they can vote themselves to return to in-person meetings, but that authority would rest with that particular board or commission. And then finally, we wanted to just provide just some comparison in terms of, what a return to in-person meetings would look like. We had started to sort of work towards that when council initially gave that direction, to a return to, it was originally I guess it was in April, I'm trying to remember, when we were supposed to start in-person meetings. So with teleconference meetings, if council at some point does fail to adopt those AB 361 findings, because it's every 30 days, just the way that our public noticing our advance procedures, we don't just notice exactly 14 days prior to a meeting, right? We get notices are written, we need materials from the applicant. There's sort of a lot of lead time for our noticing, so it's probably usually easily 3.5, weeks before an actual hearing, when we need to be checking that everything's done, notices are to the paper in time and all that sort of thing. So, if council doesn't adopt those findings, it will impact scheduling of items for the Planning Commission, since it's likely we will not be able to meet those noticing deadlines if that vote is taken in sort of, without the shorter than the lead time we need in order to, schedule an item on the Planning Commission agenda. So, when and if that moment comes, it's likely we might have to skip a meeting or something just to, get items scheduled properly and meet our noticing timelines. If we return to in-person meetings under council's current direction, it would be, a return to full Brown Act compliance. So AB 361 wasn't able to be made. You're just going back to normal Brown Act procedures. And currently council is doing these meetings fully in person. So that means that there is no option for remote participation in the meeting whatsoever. There is no call-in If the public wants to make a comment, you must come down to City Hall to the council chamber and provide that public comment in person. Packets, we are not returning to paper packets for the commission. It will be in this digital packet that you've been receiving over the last 2 years, but under the Brown Act, of course, we have to have paper, some paper copies of the meeting. So that's we will have paper obviously at the meetings for correspondence and agendas and things like that. So just wanted to give you sort of a high level, comparison in terms of what would change. It's sort of back to the way we used to do things with a few tweaks. And I guess one other thing on here is that, when we get to a point, or if we get to a point where we're going back to in-person meetings, we will come back to the commission ahead of time to revisit your rules of order, since we've made some tweaks to that over the last couple years. And, there have obviously been updates from the city clerk's office in terms of the format of rules of order and things like that. But, we won't bring that back, until we're sort of at the point, where when and if we're returning to those meetings. So with that kind of overview, happy to answer your questions, or invite the commission's discussion on this.
I have a quick question for you, which is, you talked about at the end, you said, with the exception of some minor tweaks, we're going to go back to how we were before. Were those, and the minor tweak that I think I heard was, we'll only be getting electronic copies of our packages. That's one tweak, and then we'll have to tweak our rules of order. Was there another tweak in there that I was not?
You had made some, and I'm not remembering all the details, but you had made some adjustments to like public comment, in terms of adjustments for interpretation. I think donation. We had.
That's related to our rules that falls into the bucket of rules of order.
Rules of order. Yes, exactly. Right. Oh, I'm sorry. You mean like procedurally? Yeah, that's right. The digital packets are sort of the big difference, I guess.
And explain and talk a little bit about why we can't ever. We're not talking about a hybrid method, because it seems that we've gotten a good level of public discourse with these teleconference meetings.
Are you asking about if there was a return to in-person, why there wouldn't be a remote option?
Yes, ma'am.
A remote public comment option, yeah. So basically, this was something that was explored by the city clerk's office across the organization, and really what it comes down to is the lack of staffing resources to support every board and commission in that manner. In order to operate remote public comment, it's probably a minimum of 3 people. What you used to see at council in terms of the call-in, it's a substantial amount of staff resources that goes into activating that. And it's resources that not every single board and commission have. We certainly wouldn't be able to do that, for every meeting. That's pretty taxing on our admin staff, so for that reason, council has, that's the direction, that we have received.
So it's really a staffing issue. So at some point, when we become flush again and have more money for staff, then maybe that's an option.
Right.
Okay. Let me open this up to the commissioners. I think the first hand I saw up was Commissioner Lambert, and then I'll go.
I just have a couple of quick questions. I'm confused about the timing here. If we chose to, for example, continue virtual through the month of May, could we do that even though the council's not acting until May 10th on their emergency?
So yeah, under the and maybe Heidi wants to jump in on that, but under the current vote they've taken, it's only authorized through May 12th, right? But they are meeting, the council's meeting on May 10th to take that vote again, or sorry, it's their next meeting, April 26th, right?
I got it. The other question is, are you going to have like plastic shields or whatever at the dais? How are you going to arrange the safety measures for commissioners and the public?
So in the council chamber right now, there is plexiglass around the podium, where the public and staff stand, and then there's plexi kind of, it's not in front of the dais, but it is on the sides. next to where the city attorney normally sits for council, and then next to the city manager and around the clerk's desk.
So I won't be protected from Commissioner Landris?
There is not flexi between chairs, no.
The other question I have is for the city attorney, and that is, and it pretty much defines my position on this. How do you address issues, equity issues, for people who have compromised immune systems, morbidity issues, old age, what have you, who are not comfortable, nor should they be, coming to a public meeting? How do you address those equity issues?
So I think a couple things. So first of all, there's always an option, and I understand that this may not be the most desirable option, but there's always an option to write in comments prior to the meeting, just to put that out there. However, with respect to the findings that are made, in part, they are made in order to ensure that people who are particularly susceptible to the virus are adequately protected. So if you see the latest resolution that was adopted by the City Council, that factor did in part inform the findings that Council made in order to continue authorization for teleconference meetings.
Are you aware that Frank Gehry, who's 92, is not comfortable coming to a public meeting on May 18th?
Okay, you know what? I don't think that's appropriate. If that's one applicant, that's one person.
Okay.
We're doing public policy here and not. Commissioner Landers.
So I have a few specific thoughts that I'd like to kind of offer back to colleagues and to staff, and I hope that I just want to say that I appreciate that staff has been communicating the concerns of members of boards and commissions to council pretty consistently. And so I hope that will continue. Number one, I do not believe it is appropriate to force a return to in-person meetings for anyone. I actually disagree with it for council, but that's above our pay grade. Until a vaccine is available for all age groups. And there is still no authorized vaccine for under 5s. And as I have learned the hard way in recent weeks throughout my family, being vaxxed and boosted does not stop you from getting Omicron or exposing others to it. So to the extent that there are people who have children, grandchildren under the age of 5, exposure to COVID presents serious risks that cannot be controlled, I think, adequately in a room where the windows don't open and we really don't quite know what the ventilation situation is. So I will say, for the record, I oppose the return until the vaccine is available. Once the vaccine is available, I believe that it would be appropriate for the city to make sure through aggressive communication that people know where they can get vaccinated, where they can get boosted, and also where people who are immunocompromised can get access to EvuShield. EvuShield is an antibody treatment that is given every 6 months to people who are, for example, who are transplant recipients, who are currently undergoing chemotherapy, or otherwise seriously immunocompromised and don't benefit from vaccines. I think at a minimum, it should be made amply aware, perhaps even in our noticing for a little while, where people who are concerned about these things can get their treatment, to the extent that we are requiring the public to now come in person in order to participate in our meetings. And in fact, people who are representing applicants, people who are representing parties that are appearing before us. That's the second point. The third point is, as staff has eloquently and diplomatically stated, the barrier to a hybrid public comment system is financial. I don't think that's really an excuse. I've said this in other places and will continue to say it. I think it's absolutely vital that we continue with a remote public comment option. And I urge colleagues and staff, to the extent that our budget requests are pending and we are advocating for the next round of budgets, that we make it very clear to the city manager and to the council that we believe that this ought to be a funding priority. And the last thing I would say is, in the absence of adequate funds for all boards and commissions, I hate to do this, but I would make the argument that quasi-judicial boards and commissions have a certain status and certain standards, and things, for example, like development agreements that come before us, large development review permits, where the broadest public has a serious interest. I think it's important that we actually continue with remote public comment in order to maximize community interest. I just don't think that there's any excuse for not maintaining that access. And lastly, one thing that is a little bit less complicated over the phone is translation, because we have a very effective remote translation service that has proven its ability to deliver a modicum of language justice within our community at our hearings, and that will be very important to continue. So those are my comments. I just don't think we're ready to go back in person. And with respect to Commissioner, the exchange between Commissioner Lambert and our chair about who may or may not feel comfortable attending a May 18th meeting, I do believe it would be appropriate, not with respect to any individual or any individual meeting. I think it's very important that council be made aware of the consequences of an abrupt return to in-person meetings. I don't know what else is pending, May, June, July. We've got a housing element we have to redo. I would urge the city attorney and the city manager to consider, bringing more frequent updates to council to the extent that it would allow us a bit more flexibility and a bit more notice in terms of scheduling our important meetings where the public has a significant interest in knowing. It's actually not just the remote, right? It's also getting the word out that the way to give comment is changing. Because what we can't do, candidly, is and I don't think council provided for this because they went through May 12th, but imagine a situation where the resolution expired and the next day we were in a meeting and people literally didn't know how to reach us. That's just not okay. And so I think we need to have a good month to 6 weeks of some kind of a transition so that people learn, and we have to do good advertising online, in Seascape, in our papers of record to make sure that people understand how they can reach us. It's just anything less would be really inadequate. Those are my comments.
Okay, thank you very much. Heidi?
Can I just,
You can.
If you don't mind, just procedurally, so we're clear, what council is doing every 30 days is assessing the findings under AB 361, which are the public health findings. So they will probably make them as long as they are legally able to do so. So in terms of the notice that you're looking for, I don't know that we can guarantee that if a state of emergency gets, sunsets, or if for some reason LA Public Health changes its recommendations, we will have to reassess at that time. But that's kind of the process under AB 361 that we've been undergoing regularly.
Commissioner Fonda-Bernardi.
I have two questions, and maybe staff can weigh in on this. Like Heidi said, people still have the right, they've been doing for decades, to submit writings that we get to see in our staff reports on each item. Is there a way for people to submit a video or a YouTube version of themselves if for any reason they don't want to write or can't write? That's my first question. The second question is, if we were to go to in-person, in whatever situation we were in, like the situations that Commissioner Landers raised, could we have a mask mandate in the council chambers or in the planning commission chambers? Is that an option that we have, or is that taken off the table because of some judge in Florida?
I was about to make a joke about us being a bus.
I think we would have to look into that, whether or not we could support that. Okay. We could look into it.
And what about the alternate methods of submitting responses?
So, I think we're happy to, and I don't know, maybe that was something that was already considered, but it's certainly something that we could share with the city clerk and the city manager's office, and if there is consideration of other forms of receiving public comment. And of course, this is not just a policy only for the council or for one commission.
Sure.
This is for every board and commission, and so they need to consider. Some boards and commissions don't actually have staff at them right now, so that's a level of complication here as well. So, but we're certainly happy to raise that question as well.
Okay, let's see if we can hear from the other two commissioners first. Commissioner Lambert, I see you, but let's see if Nina or Ellis have anything.
I think Sean covered every possible angle of this in his speech.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree. And I agree that it's a little, well, I'll just say I agree, and I'll end it there.
Okay, so I'm gonna call on Commissioner Lambert, but I'm gonna say it seems we have a majority heading in a certain direction right now, and I don't think that we need to spend another hour making sure that everybody understands what direction that is. But with that said, Commissioner Lambert.
I just want to clarify my reference to Frank Gehry. I know he's just one person, but he's also an applicant. And I think if an applicant feels constrained from coming to our meeting, that may be a due process issue. And I also I refer to him because we have an aging population in Santa Monica, and if he's uncomfortable, then a lot of other 90-year-old people in Santa Monica are as well. So that's why I raised his name.
Okay. Okay. My sense is he runs a major architectural firm with hundreds of people below him, so he does not have to be the presenter. But anyways, with that said, I don't know, staff, if you want a motion from us, but what I'm hearing is there's not a comfort level to go back to in-person meetings at this point.
Yeah, I don't think we need a motion. I think we wanted to put this on the agenda. It was at the request of some commissioners. So I think that's all we need. And I guess Wendy is reminding me actually that we have to put up the public comment slide. You may wish to see if there is any.
Yeah, you're right.
Desire for that. Yep.
Yeah, let's take a moment, put that slide up. Hold on, Commissioner Landers. Hold on. Let's put that slide up so we get the number posted. I know it's also on people's agenda. Wendy, just to be clear, we're not seeing the call-in slide just yet. I assume you know that. Okay. Go ahead, Commissioner Landers, while we're waiting.
Just to the point that a motion wasn't needed, I would like to make a request that we do our annual budget item, put that on our next agenda so that we have the ability to vote to authorize the chair to send a letter, and also would have the ability to ask the chair to include in the letter some comments about staffing remote public comment. So that would be an agenda item request for our next meeting, as something that just emerged from this discussion.
I think that makes sense. Okay, for the public, this is the call-in number on this agenda item. We're going to put a 1-minute timer on there to hope that that gives you enough time to call in. And I'm supportive of that last comment, Sean. I think that in this day and age that we should be able to figure out a hybrid method. I think that there is value in having in-person meetings. I think it helps a little bit with focus from commissioners and from the staff and the presenters. But at the same time, I certainly do not want to put anybody at risk and have them come in. I also have seen a huge uptick in public participation in my professional life, and I believe here in the Planning Commission from these virtual meetings. So I think there's a lot of value in that. And I realize that it's not staff's doing right now with the budget. So we will put whatever pressure we can on the council. And I also think that there is a difference between some commissions and planning commission and city council. And I think that we would benefit from having that hybrid system. Wendy, do we have any commenters at this point?
No commenters as of yet.
Okay. All right. Well, I think with that, commissioners, we've discussed this. Unless there's any last statements people want to make on this, and we can move on to our last item. Seeing nobody raising their hand, I'm going to say that the item 9A is completed, and we're moving on to 10, which is public input. So once again, or for the first time tonight, I'm actually going to do this at the proper time. Can you put up the number on the screen and or put up a clock for us for 1 minute to see if we have public comment on non-agendized items? Commissioners, just so you know, I'm running a timer. I don't know if Wendy's running it as well. So I will let you know when I get to that 1 minute mark.
It's 1 minute, Chair, and there have been no callers.
Great. Okay, thank you very much for that, staff. Commissioners, I'm gonna adjourn this meeting at 6:34, 64 minutes after we started. I would like to say this is a trend for the future, but anyways, I hope you all have a very nice evening. Staff, thank you very much. Public, we'll see you at our next meeting. Thank you very much.
Night.